Thank
Okay,
you.
now that's better. Yeah.
Welcome everyone to this dialogue on technology and cyberspace. In the past 4 days, we have discussed on various aspects of cyber, whether it is technology, its policies, or it is even psychology. In today's discussion, we will be focusing on roadmap for technology for social good. Cyber, in fact, when we talk about cyber, it's known as the other side of the coin, which is technology. It arises with the misuse of technology, and that's why we are having this discussion on how technology can be used for social good. We have with us today panelists. We'll be joined by Nicholas, uh, but we have with us now Mr. Paul Friedberg. Mr. Paul Friedberg is the Senior Director, Business and Accounts Development at Celebrite. We will be joined by Mr. Nicholas. Mr. Nicholas is a consultant, geopolitical risk and forecasting analyst. He has been involved in many initiatives related to youth, peace, and security at international forums. Thank you for joining, Mr. Paul. So the session goes like this. We start with opening statement, followed by a discussion round, and then we move on to the closing session. So we'll start with the opening statement. Over to you, Mr. Paul.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here today. I want to thank the Cyberdiplomat team and you, especially, Jana, for inviting me to speak. I don't want to lecture. I want it to be an open discussion, to bring up topics, and even to finish the session with question marks and to have an ongoing dialogue. This is the way I believe in, I think, doing innovation and cooperation. It's not to finalize everything in an hour or 2 hours or half an hour. And we always have to set the platform for the next steps. The topic that we're speaking today, I would say, is a very, very important topic, a unique topic. I can say I landed this morning, actually. So I'm still a bit jet lagged if you see me wobbling on the chair. I just came back from the Millipole in Paris, so it was a night flight back. The Millipole is it's a very big international conference for law enforcement agencies and, of course, vendors and companies who are supplying technologies and solutions for law enforcement agencies and governments. And the topic of privacy, I would say, of the use of information, where the information and technology is being used, came up in many of my discussions with my colleagues, with end users in the field, who can use the technology. Are people misusing this technology? Are we developing technology that should not be distributed in certain places? So I think this platform, it's a great place to discuss these issues, and I'm really looking forward to the next hour.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Unfortunately, Nicholas has not joined us, but we will continue with the discussion on technology for social good. And with this, I would like to ask you a question regarding the current debate that is going on globally, which is on transparency and secrecy in terms of technology. Where do we find a balance when we, in terms of even product development or with the perspective of somebody using the technology? How do we achieve an equilibrium in terms of transparency and secrecy?
Thank you for that question, Ranjana. Just a bit of my background. I joined Celebrite a year and a half ago. Before that, I had a long career in the Israeli Ministry of Defense. in different positions, starting from operational positions, through technology positions, through defense cooperation. And I'm now in the private sector, so I can say that I've really seen both sides of the coin. And the exact word that you use of the balance between secrecy and using the technology is very, very relevant. So first of all, I can say Cyberdiplomat, it's I'll be very frank, I'll speak about the technologies. I'm not here to speak about solutions or things. I want to focus on the topics. Cyberdiplomat, it's a company that we're supplying technology for law enforcement agencies to conduct investigations. I would say the first thing, our company is very, very, it's a key factor. I would say the overall, I would say word that we're using is compliance. It's starting from the bottom up, top down. I mean, I don't see many meetings with our CEO where he's not talking about this issue, misuse of technologies. He's pushing the train, I would say all employees in our company have to be trained on compliance issues, where the technology can go. We're conducting inside exams even on this issue, as we're under regulations also of the Israeli export control. And of course, we're compliant to all the GDPR regulations. So this is something in our, excuse the word, it's something running in our veins, and it's in our daily bread and butter. I think a very, very important issue is you have to be transparent to what you're supplying, what you're producing. You have to, I would say, use your marketing tools to show also the public what the company is doing, what the good company is doing. And if there are issues that have to be taken care of, it's not, we know how to take care of issues if there's, I would say, suspicious requests for technology that should not be distributed in certain places. So our company is very, very strict about these issues. Look, secrecy, it's an issue that will always be. You don't even have to have law enforcement agencies to talk about secret issues. Just look at what's going on in the social media today between teenagers. Each one's got their group. This one's not allowed to be in this group. This one's not allowed to be in this group. Please don't forward the message that I forwarded my friend. Please don't forward this this picture or this document or this mail. So secrecy, it's not only in law force or government, it's in our environment, it's in everyone's home. So it's really something that technology has sprouted up, and it causes many good things, but it also, I'd say, social communities can also cause a lot of other issues. I would say taking care of the balance, as you mentioned, Sana, I think it's very important. As in our company, we have, first of all, we have a compliance plan and a compliance, someone who's leading the compliance under the legal department in our company. We have an ethics committee. That means it's an external committee looking at Celebrite's activity, looking where we're exporting our technologies, to who we're exporting our technologies. And this is on top of course, the regulations by the government of Israel. I think it's very, very important the whole time for managers in the company to ask the questions, again, to ask the employees to make sure that the technology, even though we've got the licenses and so on, to make sure that it's only going to authorized government entities. I'd say in our case, we're only working with government entities. And I can say that even that we are selling to government entities, we are signing NDAs, we are putting our regulations in these contracts. I cannot go into details because it's all under NDAs, but to make sure that the technology is used only by the authorized bodies or the authorized government. So just to wrap up your question, it's a very broad issue. It's a delicate issue in society, balancing privacy and information. For example, I have a teenage daughter. For me, to get her code to her mobile phone, it's like doing a military operation, which I've been involved in the past. So I don't have her. So is this privacy? Should I have it? Should I not have it? So it's questions we're asking the whole time. I know of people who are putting tracking on their children's phone. Do they trust them? Do they not trust them? So if we generate saying these social issues into technology companies, it gives us a whole broader picture, and it's becoming a culture issue. It's becoming really a culture issue, and it's something that has to be talked about. And as I mentioned, training and awareness is a crucial part. And of course, ethics and compliance bands it all up together. So I hope I touched bases on what about your question. And if there's anything you would like me to elaborate on this issue, I'd be glad to.
Yes, you touched upon the aspect of cultural issues that we need training to impart to in fact get a basic understanding of how we use technology. Because of the cultural difference, sometimes it becomes like a barrier to technology integration. How do we train people in a way that technology is used for good? I mean, considering the cultural aspects. Uh, do you also take into consideration soft skills in this domain?
Well, I would say the soft skills are definitely more in the social environment, in the families, in the schools, even in the universities. And yes, in the company, it has to be a DNA of a company. The DNA of our company is only working by the regulations, by the ethics committee, only exporting technology to authorized government entities by the regulations. And it has to be, I would say, it's more of a DNA issue. The soft skills, technology is evolving you know it as much as I do, in a mess, in a really, I would say, 100 miles per hour speed every day. Each day there's coming up with new apps, new solutions, and to adapt ourselves to the use of these new issues. It's the COVID has also shifted the barometer to the bar to different extremes. For example, traveling now, you're giving a lot of your private information to different countries, to different authorities, and I truly believe that these authorities are keeping my private information inside their systems and not using it for misuse, as you said. It's not only it's my medical history, it's my travel details, it's my personal details. So a lot of details, a lot in the COVID, I would say in the past 2 years, a lot of information has been acquired. And this is something that we also have to take into consideration. And I always, when you're talking about soft skills, I always say to people, some people say, oh, I'm afraid to use the internet to purchase this. I'm afraid to use the website to purchase that. But we're doing it every day. When someone is going to fill up his car with petrol and he's paying with his Visa card, this transaction, it's done over internet. When you're hungry and you order pizza, then it's okay, but it's the same transactions. So it's really a mindset of the people, and I think a lot of the companies are doing their utmost to really keep this information. I could say in Israel, it's been published. We've had a few incidents lately, also in insurance companies, and also in one of our big hospitals, that there was ransomware attacks. and the information was actually, and I call it seized. It's like keep taking hostages, information is seized. So, so the world has shifted in this way. And yes, the soft skills, I think we have to apply them more in the schools, even in the universities. I think today you're very familiar. There are degrees in cybersecurity, network security, and so on. And I think these privacy issues have to be raised and have to be courses and have to be integrated part of these issues. It cannot. It's not a standalone issue.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. That covered a lot of that helped us gain a lot of clarity in terms of the cultural issues, as well as, and you rightly touched upon that it needs to start. It's something that is seen on our day-to-day life. It's seen in schools and colleges, and it has to start there. Um, I also wanted to understand one more aspect which today is being discussed globally, which is the issue of compliance. Today, many of the countries around the world, they don't have any regulation in terms of cyber or even technology. How is it that we can provide, because some of these countries, they, like for example India, it's a huge country with a lot of people using technology, and it's almost going out of control. So reaching out to the masses is something that is an approach that needs to be taken for India. How would you consider this particular challenge, like how to get technology for social good uh, in a large population? How do we train the people for technology for social good?
Well, it's a very difficult question. It's a very good question because I will go back only 2 years ago. It seems like the corona has been with us for 5-10 years, but once the COVID issue started and everything was shut down and traveling was shut down and I would say there was no air flights and seas there were, but we saw actually that all the crime was moving to the net and to the dark net. So all the physical crime that we saw in the past, and this we saw broadly, was moving to the net, and this is exactly what we didn't want. We didn't want people using these great technologies for criminal actions. So this is this is a very broad issue. It should be taken on a national basis. In Israel, we have, I would say, we have the National Cyber Directorate, which are in charge of all the national assets, and they have to imply very strict regulations on all these assets to make sure that no one is misusing these platforms and taking advantage of these platforms. And it's from electricity compounds to water supply, to food supply, to government agencies, and also in the private sector, banks and hospitals. I mean, if someone would have a cyber attack on a bank, and my or your account would be kidnapped, I would say, and we could not, our savings are there, our children's savings are there, a lot of people, the pensions are there. This would cause a big awareness. We tend to say it's not in our place. It's always in someone else's backyard. It's always in someone else's company. But it's not a matter of how. It's a matter of when. And I have to add that I think technology is also bringing, of course, a lot of positive use, also for small businesses, for example, who don't have the ability to build platform and IT platforms. So we see them using social media, we see them using WhatsApp, Just 2 weeks ago, the WhatsApp was shut down, and Facebook and Instagram for 6 hours, if I'm not mistaken. Let's look at the impact of the economical impact of such an issue. So that these platforms are also giving us a very for small businesses and of course for economical issues. I can give a few examples from our company that we're providing technology to fight child exploitation, for example, which is a it's a very harsh issue, very sensitive issue. Of course, we've seen this in the corona rising, the use of the net to conduct child exploitation. So we're providing technology to fight child exploitation. Human trafficking is another issue. It's done, I would say, worldwide over the net. When we see that these unfortunate people on the boat, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But behind that, it's all organized crime on the net. Environment crime, which I'm very, I would say, puts a soft spot in my heart. Environment crime is a very broad issue. It's we're not aware of it today, but it's one of the fourth biggest crimes. And so we're providing tools, I would say, today to fight these crimes, and a lot of it is done over the net. So there's a lot of good use also in these technologies.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Absolutely, there have been some great use in terms of fighting these social issues in society, which is human trafficking, child exploitation, environmental crime, and we see it increasing. Um, I would like to now just shift to one of the most important discussion, which is the use of artificial intelligence today. Today, we are talking about artificial intelligence being used and it's the future for tech for social good. So, how do you ensure good data? Because what fuels AI is also good data. And sometimes there is more of bad data that and how do you deal with this particular issue of getting good quality data to fuel the AI technology?
Yes, well, artificial intelligence, machine learning, um, there's no discussion about cybersecurity, and so on without this issue. I always first say that it's the people who invent the technology, and it's not the technology who are driving the people. And this is the mindset that I try to push forward when I'm meeting with my team or I'm meeting with partners. The technology it's a great platform. It gives everything, but we have to remember that it's people behind it who are inventing the technology. So we have to keep the people, I would say, always one niche above this technology, and this is the challenge, because once we see successful machine learning and AI tools, we start, I would say, we become more blunt, and it becomes very everything becomes easier for us. We take a lot of things for granted, and I would say that there are so many actions in our day-to-day life that are driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning that we're not even aware of. I mean, we're sitting, even if you're sitting in front of the net, of course, the right adverts are coming up, the right restaurants are coming up. So these are very strong AI machines to make your day easier. There's very strong AI and machine learning teams like Waze, which gives us the privilege of getting to work half an hour earlier or half an hour later or whatever. But behind this, it's people who are inventing AI socialized tools. I could give you an example for in Celebrite, we're using AI tools embedded into our analytics system to really, I would say, find the hay in the needle in the hay in criminal investigations. For example, there was a very violent gang in one of the South American countries, and what our experts did, we got evidence of tattoos, 2 tattoos from this gang that related the tattoo to the gang. So we took 10 pictures, we had 10 images, pictures of this tattoo, injected it into our analytic system, and the system alone built a category of this kind of tattoo. And when we ran the pictures, the thousands of pictures in the system, it popped up 2 very unique pictures of gang members with their face, and from there it was of course turned into a criminal and investigation, and the guys were stopped. So we're using AI. I mean, it's everywhere. As we're opening our Facebook, as we're opening our Google, even our Outlook calendar is becoming AI used behind. Going already to the last detail that you went into, it's making your life easier. My concern is, of course, criminals using AI tools for their activity, and they are using it. They're very advanced since the COVID, as I mentioned. Everything has shifted to the net. But on the other hand, there are very strong tools which are helping. Which we believe Celebrite is providing tools to help our community to be safer, to help our world to be safer. And every time I see a criminal investigation closing because of certain tools that we use, this gives me it puts a smile on my face, and I know that the next mission has to be done.
Thank you. So I would also like to open up this discussion to the audience. If you can just raise your hand or type your question and answer on the question and answer box here. We are discussing this, and it's really interesting in terms of how technology is being used against crime to fight crime. However, I would like to again come to you for one more question, which is on legal technology. Today, for example, there are so many cases that are there in the court, and we know that one of the use case for AI is in the judiciary. However, in when we have to practically get this integrated into the government, into the system, we have to pass bureaucracy, we have to pass all these things. So how do we make society, or what do we do in order to make technology adaptable to the current society that we are living in?
Well, I think I'm also familiar with India and, of course, Israel, and I see in both countries. In India, it's a great country. You have great technologies. I always admire the way such a huge country with so many people is run, and the amount of smartphones that I saw in India, I was amazed. I was amazed about the people walking with 2 smartphones. A lot of people are walking around with not 1 smartphone, 2 smartphones. The amount of smartphone shops and was amazing. And today, even traveling, you cannot travel today without a smartphone. And this is, who would believe that 5 years ago, not long ago, 5 years ago, you could, if you did not have a smartphone, you could travel. Today, I think it's barely impossible to travel without a smartphone. This small 15 by 7 centimeters, it's magic. You're getting all your information on the spot that you need to present at the airport. at the customs, at the passport control. Some of it cannot be documented because it has to be done at the airport. For example, me traveling yesterday, I had to have the authority of the Israeli government after filling in a form electronically and show it at the airport. And you cannot do it by paper. So bringing into the issue you raised, I think that today governments have got to invest in very, very good infrastructure for services. And another issue for governments is not enough that they're building infrastructure for services. Today, everything is moving to the cloud. The private sector today is moving to the cloud. A lot of government authorities are there, but I would say a lot of agencies, it will take them a few more years to move to the cloud. In Israel, when you said community services, you can take example that if you want to, the Ministry of Interior, that if you would like to take out a new ID card or new passport, it's done from the beginning till the end on an electronic system that you go into. You're coming the day and time to the offices, and once you're in the office with, I could say, 10 to 12 minutes, you're out. And I joked with one of my friends working in the government. I said he should be given the Nobel Prize. I mean, it's a revolution. I remember 10 years ago, if you wanted to take out a passport, it was like trying to win the lottery. You know, was there a slot on that day? Were they open? Were they not open? And today, it's a great infrastructure. And once the community has trust in these systems, it gives the options to build more systems, like the health system today. Also, I see it in India and also in Israel. Today, it's electronic health, not only receiving information, but treatment. It's electronic health. So I think it's part of our society today. We have to trust these platforms we're using. And on the other hand, the government has to make sure that going back to the first topic, that the privacy and the secrecy issues are kept, but there's no way out. That's where we're going. That's the directions, and we have to be on board. And it makes things more efficient. It gives you more work time. It focuses the manpower. It allows you to shift manpower to other vectors and sectors that have less need for electronic manpower. So I think in overall, if it's handled in a balanced way, there are many, many pluses.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. We have a question by Pruma. She asks, some countries may not have enough resources needed to take on R&D in AI. Is there an environment of AI capability exchange between countries? What cost does that come at to the receiving countries?
Thank you for that question. I really appreciate it. You know, IP and AI, it doesn't have an exact price tag. So I think the way to generate the R&D and AI is to have deep cooperation, international cooperation first of all, on the government levels. I'm sure your government has technology agreements and research agreements with many countries. I've seen the research in centers in India. It's amazing. Countries today are investing not only in India. I've seen it in Eastern Europe in many countries. I start seeing it also in South America. It's got to be, my belief, first of all, it's got to be driven in government programs, and it's got to also be driven from the industry. The industry has got to be prepared to share technologies, to share IP issues, and to generate and to generate cooperation. The key word is cooperation. Who's ever not willing to cooperate on a company level, on an economic level, on a government level, will not be able to exceed these boundaries.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. That actually opens up to the larger discussion, which is on increasing cyber diplomacy, and that is by having agreements and initiatives with various interdepartmental organizations and even countries. There is one more question that Proma has come up with. Uh, the digital processing of passports is a great example of reducing bureaucracy of middlemen and streamlining the processes. There was an example of trying to use digital processes to streamline tasks during the pandemic in India, where a digital process was used to um, reserve hospital beds for patients in need. But there were people who abused the system because they knew how it worked and how it could be manipulated. How can AI help in this situation? If you can.
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Proma, for that question. That's first of all, that's a very interesting topic. I was not aware of this topic that in India that people were trying to reserve, I would say, beds during the pandemic by net. It just shows the advanced, I would say, the advanced services of the Indian health services that you have. I don't know if this is an AI issue. I think it's more of a government policy issue. I think it's more of a issue that should be handled by the Ministry of in Israel, it's the Ministry of Health and their regulations. I'm not sure that the AI tools could tackle this issue. The only way that AI tools could maybe tackle this issue is conducting online chat with a person. And there are tools today that that even insurance companies are using that can detect certain patterns in people's voices. Are they telling the truth? Are they worried? Are they concerned? Are they under stress? And maybe using these kind of tools will prioritize for health representatives to speak to these people first. So there are these tools. I'm not sure. I'm not recommending the government entities to use this tool, but there are definitely tools that can conduct human behavior today. Even looking at there's certain looking at their eyes, measuring heat, and so on. So maybe these are AI tools that can give the health person flagging people who they think are under stress, concern, and need help. I hope I answered the question. I'm not a health expert. I don't want to be a health expert, and I only wish everyone good health. So, but I was just thinking of a few vectors that could tackle this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. I think just to wrap up this session, any final comments you have? Pruma, she says yes, that answered the question. This was a very nice discussion. In fact, it opens up to a broader topic on cyber and the, I would say, the other side of the coin of technology is nothing but cyber, and these are all issues that we deal with on day-to-day basis, that is leading with respect to misuse of technology and how it's affecting society. Any final comments from your side, Mr. Paul?
First of all, I want to thank you. It was a great discussion. I'd be happy, of course, to carry on these discussions. We must not be afraid of technology. This is my first. Must not be afraid of technology. We must not be afraid of using technology. We must not be afraid that there are people who are better than us using technology. We must be aware of what technology can do and what technology cannot do. We have to start with the soft skills at home, educating ourselves, educating our children, our families. I definitely think this should be an integrated part of cyber courses for BAs, MBAs, and doctorate courses, regulations. And I can share, as I said, the experience from our company, its compliance, its ethic committees, and looking at the good of the community and not only of the economical benefits of the company. And you can share my mail, and I'd be glad to interact with anyone who would like to, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being there in this session. And we hope to work with you in the coming days. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And
And
I would also like to thank the attendees for being a part of this.
thank you all for joining, and I hope to meet up soon.
Thank you.